Okay, hi everyone. Thank you all for joining. My name is Sagar. I am the senior academic counselor here at Upgrad, MentorLab Nepal. Today's event is in partnership with Upgrad and MentorLab. We have our speaker, Mr. Venkatesh Sunkad. He is a PhD holder from. He's a professor and PhD holder. He will be. He is a professor in UZDX Institute of Technology. He has done his PhD from University of Colorado, and he has some things to say about the DBA program that Upgrad offers, and it is now also available in Nepal. MentorLab Nepal is the only proprietor of Upgrad in Nepal, and we have been helping students find the right course in the right university for the past 4 years now. We will begin the DBA meeting shortly, and meanwhile, I would like you guys to keep the session interactive. If you guys have any questions, you can put it in the chat, and Venkatesh sir will address you. And I would like sir to take over now, and you guys can all ask him anything you want at the end of the session, and you can drop your questions in the Q&A. Thank you, everyone, and I will be passing this over to Venkatesh sir now, and we will.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Sagar. Finish your thoughts.
Yes, we will again have a small chat and a session after the DBA session ends. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Sagar. Appreciate it. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, folks. My name is Venkatesh. Let me do two things. Give me 1 minute. Let me share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, yes,
Perfect.
Venkatesh.
Thank you. Thank you. So my name is Venkatesh. Physically, I'm based out of India, and actually from India, I'm based out of Bangalore. So I'm speaking from Bangalore in India. So from a quick introduction to myself, and then I will talk about the program and everything. From an education perspective, I did my undergrad in India. My master's and PhD has all been in US, but it has all been in wireless communications, wireless as in the 4G, 5G kind. Spent about 21 years in US working for different companies, came back to India. I was the vice president for Vodafone. Then I was vice president for a company called Mobilium, and then joined Upgrad through an acquisition. Our company was acquired by Upgrad, so that's how I basically joined Upgrad. So that's a quick introduction to myself. Before I continue, as Sagar rightfully mentioned, guys, we want it to be as interactive as possible. So please provide your questions either in the chat or in the Q&A box. Once my talk is probably about 30 minutes, I think 35 minutes. Once that is done, we will answer all your questions. So don't feel, ask as number of questions as possible, but only we will do it in the end so that, I don't want it to be interrupted when I'm speaking, not because of anything else, because the flow, because might, get disturbed. So other than that, you're most welcome to, and so I think we'll have a good conversation. Let's start with that. So, we will first start with, before I start about the DBA program and what is it and why is it and how is it different from other programs, how is it different from other degrees and everything, the first thing I wanted to talk about, see, sort of, if you look at it, most of you are sort of, either in the senior professional level or a mid professional level. And so you will all be leading teams. And also individually, you'll also be, interested in your career. So I just wanted to sort of spend a little bit time talking about the trend that is happening because of technology, because of a lot of other things, what's happening. So this is a very nice thing that has been put up by Google, actually. Google came up with this, above the API, below the API, and below the API row. What does it mean? I'll explain. And why am I talking about it? We'll talk about it. You see, if you look at the jobs, right? In general, if you look at the jobs, and again, I'm talking from 2005, right? Initially, there was a lot of jobs that actually required a human touch, whether we like it or not. Now, those were actually basically called above the API jobs. That means there are general jobs, which is basically here in yellowish or the orange color. Now, as and when, technology increased, and as and when, what should I say, its sophistication happened, irrespective of whether you're in technology, supply chain, finance, whatever, right? Things started improving. That means to say a lot of jobs that were actually done by humans slowly started getting automated, which means to say the human skills started getting specialized more and more. And then what happened slowly, a lot of jobs that were even automated, but they were a little bit of still the humans were in doing those jobs. And finally, those jobs are going to be completely automated. Certain jobs are going to be completely automated. Let us take an example and understand this, right? At least I'll take an example of, and I'm sure most of you must be familiar with Uber, right? The car service, right? If you're familiar with it. I think before Uber came in, and I'm assuming Uber is present even in Nepal or in India or anywhere else in the world, right? This is the cab. Initially, if you wanted a taxi, what would you have to do? You have to call somebody, and you to call a customer care, and then they would provide you with a taxi, and then from the airport or anywhere, and then you had to go. So those were all above the API jobs. Then what happened? Automation came in. What do I mean by automation? So now, for example, if you have to hail a cab or a taxi, there is an app called an Uber app. Now what happens? You click on that app and automatically you say, I want to go into this place. So now what happens? A lot of those, jobs that you had to call somebody for a taxi are slowly getting eliminated, right? So now what happens? Where you are, that for the driver to know where you are, it's very easy. From an app, he knows where you are. He knows where you want to go. You know how long will it take for the cab to come. You pay through the app. So there were a lot of jobs that we're doing has been eliminated, but there are still few jobs available. So for example, if there's an emergency, you need to call customer care, there are a few jobs yet, and the driver is still a human. So a lot of jobs that were above the API became below the API. Now, if you think about it from a transaction perspective, right? Even let's say tomorrow you start slowly, people are talking about autonomous cars. That means to say the only interaction that you have in this entire Uber journey was the driver. Everything else was automated. Now, even if that becomes automated by autonomous car, then it becomes below the API. So this is what is happening. Not all jobs are going to be done. But the reason why I'm talking about this is specialization is the name of the game that is happening today, irrespective of which field you are in. Basically, there are certain specialized jobs that, the more you specialize and the more knowledgeable you are, the more, you do have that. Those jobs are not easily going to be reduced. But if you are doing a vanilla job, chances are not 100% of your job may be reduced. But the importance of what you do will slowly be reduced. Or for example, if you're leading a large team, maybe 50% of your team jobs could be automated, which means to say automatically in the corporate structure or in any structure that you are there, that kind of impact will have. And that's the reason why I'm talking about it. Why am I talking about this is because this is what is trending, and hence I'll go into the DBA. What is a DBA? How is it different? All that I'll talk about it. But first I wanted to talk about what's the trend that is happening. With that, let's go to the next slide. The next slide basically talks about, what does it mean from a leadership perspective, or what does it mean for you? One of the things that is happening is, earlier what used to happen, people used to say, I'll start with the company at 18 or 22, I'll retire in that same company. Globally, if you look at it, and I'm sure it's happening in Nepal too, those trends are slowly changing. Nobody is going to, very rarely, until unless probably you work for the government or you work for certain industries, very rarely people are going to join the same company and retire from the same company. Which means to say, the reason why that is happening is because of opportunities and skill sets that are needed in order to do your job. The second thing, what is happening is slowly, as I told you, right, there are a lot of jobs which are slowly being consumed and automated, which are basically the service economy jobs. But whereas the knowledge worker jobs are not going to be, so soon, eliminated so soon. So slowly that, below the API, above the API, or whatever you want to talk about, right, those are happening. Now, the third one is between the haves and the have-nots. Haves and the have-nots is being, people who have the skill set, people who don't have the skill set. Fourth, basically, a lot of these jobs, and especially if you are young, and obviously if you're in a senior management position, that may not apply to you. But if you are young, a lot of people, especially the youngsters, what is happening? they are basically going to be, they don't want to do an 8 to 5 job. They want to take up contracts. Why is it important to you? Because if you're leading teams, and this is something that, very important, if you're leading teams, you need to know that, your teams may have people who are full-time employees, few people who are on a contractual basis for a certain number of times. How do I handle such kind of, environment? Diversity of workplace, most of nowadays, what is happening, be it Nepal, be it India, most companies are sort of global. So, if you look at it, for example, if you take Upgrad, right, we are in at least in 21 to 25 countries in the world. Similarly, any company you take, they are a diversified workplace. It means to say you need to understand how do I work, how do I make sure about it. Similarly, technology and, obviously, and AI, which is, going to be a huge impact in all our lives. So the reason why I'm talking about these things is these are the kinds of things that you need to understand in order for you to become an effective leader in the next generation, irrespective of which field you're in, be it supply chain, finance, healthcare, technology, doesn't make a difference which field you're in. These are the impacts are going to have. Even you may say, what, hey, I'm a CA or I'm a, an independent, financial consultant. It will also impact because the type of people will you be dealing with, or if you're basically going on the enterprise side and you're doing it, the type of companies that you're going to deal with, all of that is going to change. So as a leader, irrespective of whether you're a single consultant or a leader in any of the companies, these are the things that are going to change. Now, let me introduce the concept of what is a DBA. So basically, in order to do that, we have introducing this program called DBA, which stands for Doctorate of Business Administration. And I'm sure a lot of you must have heard it for the first time, or a lot of you must have heard it for, maybe heard it. And there is always this, thing that what does that mean? I will talk about it very, very, very detailed, in the next few slides. But I just want to introduce to this the program called DBA, Doctorate of Business Administration. It is a, what should I say, a doctoral program. But the key is, I'm going to use that word, and I'm going to use this word throughout the presentation. It is a very applied doctoral program. What do you mean by applied doctoral program? Let's spend a little bit time talking about it now, and then I will explain it there and how are you going to do it and everything. So what does that mean? That means to say, when this program that you're going to do, right, is basically a program which is not a very theoretical program. This is not a program that basically talks you theory, but basically makes you sort of think outside the box, always be hungry, basically makes you feel, teaches you how do I implement things. And that's why it's called an immigrant method. What should I say? So why do I use the word immigrant? Because you see, if you're an immigrant, for example, think about it, an immigrant in any new country, right? Let's assume, somebody goes and becomes an immigrant in Nepal or an immigrant in India or anywhere else. Immigrant is always, afraid that they may be thrown on off, that, they need to work hard in order to do it. They're always curious about it. And hence, this program that basically does has that immigrant kind of, hunger, basically makes you always think in the assignments that we give you, makes you think in the dissertation, and which I'm going to talk about. That is very important. The second thing that this program will do you is sort of gives you to sort of create your dissertation or a thesis in the area in which you are very comfortable with, which means to say, like an artisan or a painter, right? You can basically what a painter is very proud of his painting, they'll sign that painting, right? Similarly, you can craft your dissertation in any area that you're interested in. So if you're doing supply chain, let's say, but you can do your dissertation supply chain in e-commerce, supply chain in, transportation of, what should I say, materials for, basic materials. So you can actually make sure the dissertation that in this program is, scarred for each individual. The third thing is basically, it will always, the way we want the dissertation, the way the courses has been done is, it's not some theory courses and that, but there are projects in the courses. They are making sure that, the courses are so applied that you always needs to think on the courses. And so I thought it's always like thinking about a startup, right? Startup is always changing, and we also adapt our program, the courses, in such a way that we basically bring in the latest. And last but not the least is the options that you have for dissertation, not for all programs, but for certain DBA programs, are really, really that, outside the traditional, research paper, doctoral paper, and things like that. So this is something that is very unique about this program. This is a doctoral program, DBA. DBA stands for Doctorate of Business Administration. Now, I think, same thing in India, or same thing in, for example, in Nepal, I'm assuming the same thing. The moment somebody says he is a doctor, let's say, for example, Sagar, right? Since Sagar introduced us, I'm using that word, or Dr. Venkatesh, right? Two things come to my mind. Two things come to your mind. First, if you see the word doctor, that means you think he's a medical doctor, right? Or generally, if he says, oh, I'm not a medical doctor, generally, in fact, then you think, oh, this person is a PhD, because that's the traditional way thing, right? So obviously, that is something that we are mostly introduced to, right? Either a PhD or what should I say, this one, medical doctor. So now what is this DBA and what is it that you are going to achieve? A DBA program is also a doctoral program. It is equivalent to a PhD. There is no difference between a PhD in terms of recognition, in terms of your status, in terms of everything. It's exactly as a DBA, as a PhD. So I just want to make sure of it, because I think that's a very common question people have. Hey, what do you mean by a DBA? Because I've only heard of a PhD, or obviously or a medical doctor. Medical doctor is not something that we're going to talk about today. But what is a PhD? I generally know that. So what is this new program? This program is not new. It has been there globally, especially in US and in European countries. It's been there for a long time. Nowadays, a lot of this, a lot of this Asian countries are also looking into it. The reason why they're looking into it is the main difference between a doctor or a DBA and a PhD, and this is very important, is the applied nature of it. And so let us spend a little bit time talking about what's the difference between a PhD and a DBA, so that all of you understood that. And that's a very important distinction that I need to bring it out, so that you understand what the DBA program is all about. So if you look at the difference between a DBA and a PhD statement, let's first think about the dissertation or the things you're going to do. First thing about a DBA is, it's very important, is it has to start with a business problem. So it's a very, very applied course, and hence we are targeting working professionals for this. The reason why we are targeting working professionals, is because they have been in the working field, especially if you're a senior management and things like that. The reason is now, so that you can actually, what should I say, understand and, start with a business problem. So a DBA, your dissertation has to start with a business problem. Whereas in a PhD, it doesn't have to be starting with a business problem. In most PhDs, it's always a complex and a scientific techniques that you're trying to do. So for example, there's an algorithm. You may say, okay, this algorithm runs in 15 minutes. Now I'm going to create new mathematical models so that I'll make that 15 minutes running it in 10 minutes. I'm just taking an example, right? That is something which may or may not have any practical use at that point. Later on, it may have it, or somebody else may figure it out. But whereas a DBA starts with a business problem, which is mostly attractive to most of the working professionals, because that is what a working professional needs. Second, work experience. Very, very relevant for a DBA, because you have to identify a business problem. And most of the people who take up this program identify a business problem in their own area. Guys, if you can mute yourself, I would really appreciate it. Mr. Sushil, if you can mute yourself, I would appreciate it. Thank you. So that's very important. The second thing is, from a work experience, whereas if you want to do a PhD, you don't have to have any work experience. 3, time. Generally, a DBA is, you can finish it in 3 years. The reason why you can finish it in 3 years is because it will always start with this one, because it's a business problem where you're going to apply certain things to solve a business problem. So it's a time-bound problem. Whereas PhDs is, a lot of research, is a lot of involved, minimum 4 to 6 years. Next, expected output is generally, depending on the DBA program that we have, and I'll talk about it. Upgrade has multiple DBA programs with multiple universities in the world. We have certain DBA programs with US universities. We have certain DBA programs with European universities. In addition to that, we also have DBAs in Most of the things you can think about, if you want to do it in supply chain, if you want to do it in finance, if you want to do a general DBA, we also have, if you want to do it in emerging technologies with, generative AI, we have a DBA in that. So with the multiple DBA programs that we have for what should I say? I think so. Either I think most of the fields that you are interested in, we will have a DBA for you. And as I told you, with different universities, we have certain tie-ups with certain European universities. We have tie-up with US universities. What do you mean by the tie-up and everything? I'll talk about it in the next slide, a couple of slides, so that you understand the whole process. Next. So the dissertation, which is your final thesis or dissertation that you talk about, depending upon the DBA program, there could be multiple outputs for your DBA program. In certain DBA programs, they're expecting you to write a research paper. But when I use the word research, it's not your traditional research. It's basically, you will have coursework. In addition to coursework, you can, for your dissertation, you can write basically a paper, or you can write a book, or you can create a business plan. Whereas in a PhD, it is always generally a scientific paper, it's more research based. Post-degree, most DBA programs are looking for senior management roles. What do I mean by senior management roles? Let's say you're a VP. Most people say, hey, I want to become a CXO in my company. Or the way we teach, depending upon which DBA you take, a lot of people are interested to do their own startups. Or you can become a high-end consultant. So things like that are very, very possible in a DBA. Whereas if you look at a PhD, in a lot of cases, right, in not all cases, mostly they either take an academic role or a scientific role. So it's that's sort of at a high level, the difference between a DBA and a PhD. Now, what does it mean, and and I'm sure there are other DBA programs that are also being taught. So what is it that an upgrade DBA brings to the table compared to a lot of other DBAs? You see, there are a lot of DBA programs, available. Most DBA programs are vanilla programs that they say, you know what, hey, you come with us, spend some time, you do a little bit things and you automatically get a degree. There's not any value to, yes, you may still get a DR next to your name, but is that value? What have you learned? But then there are certain DBA programs which are geared towards specifically if you want to teach. They say, hey, this is a program where if you get a doctoral degree and you go into academics. So basically, and I'm calling it DBA plus. You go into academics, you basically go into that, so it's geared towards that. But whereas our program, which I'm calling it DBA plus plus, is basically, obviously you will get the first two. You can become a doctor, you get a DR next to your name or before your name. You obviously, if you want to go teach, definitely having a doctoral degree helps. But more importantly, you will learn the applied piece of it, irrespective of which DBA you do in. DBA in finance, or if you do a DBA in healthcare, if you do a DBA in supply chain, leadership, general DBA, or emerging technologies. There are multiple DBAs. I'm just naming a few. Irrespective of it, both the coursework and the thesis has been geared for you to solve business problem, which is what most companies are looking today. So most companies are actually are interested in a lot of PhDs today, but they're interested in DBAs. The reason why they're interested in DBAs is not because the reason is they know most people who have done a DBA means to say, A, they come from a working professional background. B, they are able to solve complex business problems independently. And that is what the enterprises need today, or the companies need today. And hence it's very important that you actually understand what a DBA is, what it can do, and what are the things that it can do. Now, how does a DBA help to, basically achieve my goals? And we will actually, talk about this, and, we can talk. First thing, as I told you, right, it solves real world business problems using research-based skills. So basically, you start with a business problem. So that is what makes a DBA program very important, because you start with a business problem, then you apply the techniques to solve business problems. So tomorrow, if you go in the job market, or if you want to do something on your own, you would have had the skill sets to solve complex business problems. Second, this is basically a new career opportunities, be it, as I told you, right, DBA, DBA plus, and DBA plus plus, just to show you that if you want to become an academician, a lot of these today globally, universities and everything are preferring DBAs to teach rather than PhDs. Why? They want the students to be a lot more practical, because most companies today are saying the moment you graduate, I want you to be useful. I don't want you to again train. And so people are preferring DBS so that when they teach it a lot more practically. Second, it will also basically help you to lead a lot of research and a lot of what should I say, in your companies to become a CXOs or something like that. The reason being, companies are also looking for DBA programs because they know that if they say a DBA, you are able to solve complex business problems. So third thing is, you'll become an expert in your field. It's a very, very important thing that you become an expert in your field. The reason why it is important that you become an expert in your field, because that is what makes the new generation of job markets. It is not anything else that really pushes you to the new generation. These are the things that really makes you the generation. So you have a DBA program that basically, basically makes you an expert in your field. Now, what does the DBA program consist of? The DBA program is basically an online program where the classes are going to be held both online and offline. What do I mean by that? Offline means basically, it means to say live or recorded, which means to say depending on the DBA program that you choose. In some DBA program, all the lectures are live. If it may be online, but they are live. What do I mean by live? That means to say a professor like me or somebody, right, comes to the class and every weekend they may teach. Depending on the DBA program and the university you choose. In some DBA program, it will be a combination of recorded lectures plus live lectures. Why have we done this? Depending on the course or the specialization you take, and also depending upon this one you take, what should I say, your skill learning and your availability. Some of them say, I travel a lot, so every weekend I may not be able to attend classes, even though I know the classes are recorded and everything. I would prefer to do it at my own pace. If you are ready to do it at own pace, then some DBA programs are there where lot of lectures are recorded, and then you have a few classes where you can go and sort of a doubt clearing sessions and things like that in your coursework. But there are certain DBA programs with upgrad where every class is a live program. Some of them feel, hey, I like that personal touch. I like that high touch, that has to be going through it. So combination of either, depending on the DBA choose. So for example, one of the DBA programs that I lead and work heavily, very closely with, which is the DBA in emerging technologies, basically generative AI and AI, things like that, right? It is a live program. What do I mean by live? Every weekend, Saturdays and Sundays, a professor comes and teaches in the thought part of the course. So every weekend, it's an online still, but every weekend they come and teach. Whereas in, for example, there could be a certain, DBA programs where, it is a combination of recorded and that. So it depends upon which, area that you are interested in. So it is very important that the DBA program has, so it depends upon what you choose from that. Similarly, the next thing is the, your dissertation, which is a very important part. So a DBA program has two components. One is the courses or the modules. The second part is a dissertation. Now, the dissertation also, it again depends upon the DBA program you choose. In some DBA program, you have a professor who can, you constantly be in touch with them depending on. In certain DBA programs, it is certainly sometimes you meet with the professors. So again, but one advantage is, you can choose your topic. So one of the things that we highly encourage, and this is what, as I told you, right, you can put your mark is, you are working in supply chain, you can do your dissertation in finance. You can combine finance and supply chain. Similarly, if you're working in, let's say, healthcare, you can have AI and healthcare as your dissertation topics. So your dissertation topic doesn't have to be exactly what you think, but one of the key things that I always say, and this is very important, is pick a topic that you work every day, because that way it will be much easier. So that is what the DBA program is all about. It is basically concentrated, DBA program, applied program, which basically will help, has a two components. One is a thought, which is the courses, and you also have the dissertation. Combination of these two is what makes the DBA program, especially an upgrade DBA program, very successful, because it is, it has the best in terms of the professors. I'm going to speak a little bit about the professors because that is also very important to understand who are the people who are teaching it. We have most professors who teach, have sort of a combination of work experience and what should I say, a passion for teaching. So we have a lot of these professors that teach in this program are actually, consultant. They have their own consultancy. One professor has basically in finance. He is consultant for a lot of hedge funds companies in US. So he has his consultancy. Another one has a startup in blockchain. I'm just talking. Another one has his consultancy in, one of the major supply chains, consultancy. Another one has his company, employs about 200 people in AI and ML. One more professor who teaches us actually sold the company to Upgrade, and now he's part of Upgrade, family. So there are a lot of these professors, especially who teach this one, and sort of a global audience, because we do have a global audience. And that's another very, very important thing that I will talk about. And, most of these professors who teach this program have a combination of, work experience and a passion for teaching. Why is that important? Because most of you come from a work experience perspective. So you are basically want to understand whatever topic that you're taking, be it finance, be it how do I apply it in my day-to-day job? How do I apply it in the business sense? How do I solve a business problem? Until unless you have done it before, it's very difficult to know how to do it. And that's a very, very important thing. The second thing is, irrespective of whether you have a classes every weekend or you have that occasional classes, the audience is global. What do I mean by audience is global? The learners are global, which means to say whenever you have a class, let's say, when the professor talks about it, right, you will be able to understand and listen, not just your perspective, but people perspective from a global perspective. You may say, hey, I have a student from, when most of our DBA programs, we have students from, Europe, we have students from US, when I use the word US, Canada, South America, they'll be able to interact with them. You'll be able to, so it's a global audience when you do it an online program. So that helps you because the perspective of each student coming into the class is very important. So just to give you an example, right, when I did my MBA, right, obviously the thought one was important because I learned, the MBA, the management, the accountancy and everything. But 60% of the things I learned was when people talked about, the Harvard Business Review cases. And each student, had their own perspective. And I learned a lot because somebody came from a supply chain and said, hey, this is the issue here. Somebody came from a healthcare and said, hey, in my field, this is how we do this. Similar things. Similarly, somebody could come from finance and say, this is what it is. So, and somebody could come from a technology background and say, this is what it is. So it's a very, very important combination that you will learn. And this is what a DBA brings to you, not just the thing, but that aspect. So this is sort of a high level, of what an Upgrade DBA is, its advantages, and what is it that it can do for you. Now, as I talked about it, the taught portion or the courses could be in asynchronous or a synchronous mode. Asynchronous means to say it includes recorded videos, lectures, practice assignments, graded assignments, and some live classes. So for a lot of the students or learners, they may feel that that is the best way for me to go because, hey, I'm very busy. I will do it at my own pace. But they also has a synchronous piece where in some DBA programs, every course is taught, every lecture is live. So it depends and, and also get, mentoring, but irrespective of whether you do it, asynchronous or synchronous, you do get mentoring sessions and all of that. So it's a combination of that is what you have in our DBA program. Depending upon the university, your style, both options are available. That I think will end my class, my talk, guys. Hopefully you got a good understanding of what the DBA is. You got an understanding of what it is. I'm going to now, basically stop and, take up any questions. What questions and comments do you have? Either you can, I think you guys can unmute yourself. I think you can also talk, correct me if I'm wrong. If not, you can ask me a question. Go ahead. Any questions do you have either on the program or thoughts?
Hi, Venkatesh sir.
Hi, Nabil. Go ahead, please.
Actually, I have three queries about the DBA.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I understand about the difference between PhD and DBA. For PhD, there are lots of scholarship available for PhD aspirants. But what about the DBA, sir?
In fact, in terms
and,
of opportunities, you mean?
Yeah, opportunities and scholarship available. Is there any
Okay,
scholarship available for DBA?
Exactly. I will talk about the opportunities, the scholarship part, and I'll leave it to Sagar to talk about it. I think the best thing, according to me, and Sagar, correct me if I'm wrong, from a financial perspective, I think the counselors can talk to them on a one-on-one and explain to them on the scholarships, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Sagar.
Yes, sir. You can give the basic overview of the price if you have it, and I can take it one-on-one for the
Exactly. You can
scholarship.
take it one-on-one. I do not have the numbers, to be fair, Sagar. So you can take it on one-on-one basis. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Sure, sir.
And
Anyone who wants to know the prices and scholarships can get in touch with me in a one-on-one call or a text or a counseling session.
Yeah, absolutely. Sagar, if you don't mind, can you put your email on the chat so that everybody will know your email and they can actually talk to you? Okay?
Sure, yes, sir.
That would be very useful. And so, Nabin, from an opportunity, I will definitely talk about it. And then, from a scholarship and everything, I think, Sagar will put his contact details. Please contact him. And, there are, I think, multiple scholarships available, but Sagar will go in detail into that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So I will talk about it, Nabin, and then Kagendra, I will answer your question, please. And the eligibility criteria. Excellent questions. I'll talk about all of those. See, the opportunities are huge nowadays for DBA program. And I'll talk to you why it is huge. You see, a lot of these companies are now expecting people to get a DBA because they see that as the sort of the stepping stone, and they see that if you get a DBA, that means to say, A, you have a lot of work experience, and second, you'll be able to solve complex business problems using technology, and that's what they want. So the opportunity, nowadays, a lot of these companies are preferring a DBA. Now, the second part of it is also people are basically, if you want to teach, a lot of universities, as I told earlier, prefer a DBA because they want to teach the students, very practical sort of, thing rather than theory. So the opportunities are slowly increasing. Doesn't mean that if you have a PhD, you'll not get a job. Don't assume that. Let me be honest with you. But the opportunities for DBA are slowly increasing. Now, there are a couple of questions on, this one, eligibility criteria to pursue this course. So Ramesh, excellent question. Depending on the DBA you chose and the thing you chose, right, which DBA you chose, because we have multiple DBAs, the requirements changes. Since for some DBAs, to be honest, let me be honest with you, especially for certain DBAs, especially high-end, we need at least 10 years of work experience. Some of them, we need 3 to 4 years of work experience. Some of them, we need 5 years of work experience. So what I would say is, please talk to Sagar and his teams, and he will be able to basically give you that entire, it's like a buffet, right? You have your choices. Please speak to them, and depending on the area in which you're interested in and the area in which, you want to do this, definitely, and the university, definitely they can, and I'm sure we'll be able to find something that matches your talent and your interests. Now, the next question that comes is, Kagendra, I have a master in sociology. Can I join this program? Absolutely, Kagendra. You can definitely, join this program. Depending upon what DBA you want to do. Do you want to do a DBA in human resource HR? We have an option. You want to do it in leadership? We have an option. So one thing, what I'm trying to say is, what I gave today was a general feedback of all the DBA programs in general. What I would say is, at this point, you get an idea of what DBA is, what is an upgrade DBA, what is so different about it. Please talk to, again, Sagar and his team and everything, their MentorLab. They should be able to basically stitch up an exact DBA with your concern. Now, them and upgrade together will able to basically match your interest with one of the programs we have. Absolutely. So I think that match is something that if you can do, and it's much easier to do it on a one-on-one rather than in a community setup, it will be much useful. Hope I've answered your question, Kagendra. Next, Ashish Dakal, what if I have work experience but no masters? Absolutely, it is good and good. You still can do a DBA, Ashish. One of the things that we have is, and that's the reason why DBA looks more for a work experience, because they're very, very important. Sometimes, we are basically substituting work experience for masters, because we would like work experience a lot more better for a DBA than a master's. Reason being, not that if you have a master, something is bad. Absolutely not. If you have a master's, fantastic, and we respect that. But work experience is as good as it. So definitely you can do a DBA even if you don't have a master's. Hope I've answered your question. Anything else? Is there any on-campus DBA program available? At this point, especially from Upgrad, and Sagar, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know about it, I do not think we have any up-campus from it. But what I would say, Nabin, is please talk to the coordinator. Maybe they might have, they might be one that I don't know about. Please talk to them, and you can see, since it is mostly for working professionals, on campus, there could be a chance where, you may visit the campus for a week or 2 weeks, and there is options available, but you do it 100% on campus, check about it. So as Sagar rightfully said, most of the options, the reason why it is not because of anything else, because it's for working professionals. So you have to resign your job, you know what I mean to say, right? In order to do it physically, and hence the online options are, Any other questions? I'm going to stop my share so that I can see the questions. Thank you. Any other questions, folks? Okay. If there are no other questions, looks like, thank you very much. Sagar, do you want to add anything else?
Yes, sir. So if there are no questions, we would like to move towards the conclusion of the webinar.
Okay, perfect. And
Still
so
waiting for any, if
yeah,
there's any
absolutely. I'll
question.
wait for a couple of minutes, please. You have the emails that has been put up by Sagar, which is both his, his number. Please call him, and he will be able to basically give you a lot more details. And sometimes it's much better to talk one-on-one, right? Because that way they can, actually take your concerns, your interests, everything, and match the right DBA program for you.
Okay, so I guess that's it. I would like to conclude the program here. I would like to thank Venkatesh sir for these valuable insights. And I would like to inform all the participants that if they want to know anything more about the program or Upgrad or MentorLab Nepal, I will be available 24/7. You have my number. I have dropped it in the chat. And Venkatesh sir, I would like to switch into Nepali if that's
Absolutely. Sure.
सो सबैजनालाई धन्यवाद आइदिनु भएकोमा कसैलाई केही क्वेसन्स भएमा चाहिँ हामी चाहिँ बानेश्वरमा मिड बानेश्वरमा चाहिँ हामी अवस्थित छौँ हामी भिनस हस्पिटलको अपोजिटमा अवस्थित छौँ हजुरहरूले अफिस भिजिट गर्न सक्नुहुन्छ डिबिए प्रोग्राम्स र एमबिए प्रोग्राम्स हामीसँग चाहिँ शैक्षिक चाहिँ कुरालाई लिएर चाहिँ हामीसँग सम्पूर्ण प्रकारको प्रोग्रामहरू हजुरलाई अथवा हजुरको वरिपरि कसैलाई पनि चाहिने केही छ भने चाहिँ हामीले सहयोग गर्न सक्छौँ हामीले चाहिँ नेपालमा मात्रै नभएर नेपाल बाहिर जहीँ तहीँ हजुरहरू बाहिरको कोर्स नेपालमा हामीले घर घरमा अभाइलेबल गराउँदै आएको 4 वर्ष पुगिसकेको छ र हामीले अझै पनि वी विल कन्टिन्यू टु डु सो हजुरहरूलाई केही पनि यस सम्बन्धी चाहिएमा चाहिँ मेरो नम्बरमा डिरेक्टली भोलि मलाई कल गर्न सक्नुहुन्छ र हजुरहरूको केही अब त्यसपछि पनि केही क्वेसनहरू केही चाहिँ अप्ठ्यारो केही नबुझ्नु भएको कुराहरू छ भने अझै पनि हजुरहरूले च्याटमा चाहिँ ड्रप गर्न सक्नुहुन्छ र छैन भने चाहिँ अब यति नै हो आजको लागि सबैजनालाई आइदिनु भएकोमा धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद हामी फेरि पनि कुरा गर्दै गरौँला I would like to thank everyone and especially Venkatesh sir for everything that he shared with us and we will conclude it here. Thank you everyone.
Thank you guys. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you sir. Bye.